All right, so I just thought maybe this is actually quite different than what we usually do, but this is just a thing that popped into my mind this week since we did a longer thing when we watched the Carry On movie where we just split it in half, and it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. If you take like a movie length thing and split it into two parts, it doesn't seem like we're watching something so epic. And we've just kind of inadvertently talked about mysteries quite a bit, particularly with like British mysteries, right? Like BBC stuff, and how it's a good example of just how British stuff is better than North American stuff. And, the way they kind
More
of.
open to suggestion as opposed to in your face.
Right. And trying to, with mysteries in particular, like trying to piece together how things are going to go and whatever. So I was thinking maybe we could watch a mystery thing. This is a movie, actually. This is actually recent, though. This came out a couple of years ago, and this movie's just been stuck in my mind since it came out. And I don't know, I just thought it might be neat to see what a modern day mystery is like, because this movie's called Knives Out. I'll tell you a little bit about it. But the main thing, I don't want to, without spoiling stuff, but this happens near the start. What is so interesting to me about this movie is, instead of the traditional whodunit, where the whole time you're trying to figure out who committed the crime, this movie does the opposite, which I guess that's not so unusual, right? Because isn't that how Columbo kind of worked?
What is it? You see who the murderer is, and then you kind of figure out the psychological inference of why this stuff happened.
Yeah, because that was Columbo, right? Where I'm thinking of.
Columbo did that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like, but Columbo doesn't know, or does he? And then, you watch how. So this is somewhat like that, of like, but still different. This is a really unique take on a mystery movie, in the sense that, you're not trying to figure out who did it. It's more, there's the whole clockwork of it. And I don't remember the character's name in this, but it's Daniel Craig, the guy who is the most recent James Bond. And it is one of those Nero, Wolfe, Hercule Poirot, he's one of those type of guys. And I just remember when this movie came out, I do this thing sometimes where I'll just get a bunch of recent movies and I put them all on my phone and I just watch them at night when I'm going to bed or whatever. So what I do is I just kind of, since it remembers where I was in them, it's like channel surfing. Like when I get tired of one, I'll flip to the next and then flip to the next. But eventually I do see the whole thing, because as I'm going through this loop of like 5 different movies, as I get back to the movie, it'll resume where it was. And in this case, I remember I got like the latest Terminator movie and whatever, a bunch of shit. And I didn't finish any of them except this movie. This movie, I was like, I love this movie. This movie's great. And the rest of these movies can go to hell. And I just deleted them slowly, but I watched this one all the way through. So it's been a couple of years. And yeah, I don't remember it super well because it's been a couple of years, but it's always in my mind as like, oh yeah, that was a good movie. And I guess really the only real setup for this is the guy who directed it. His name is Rian Johnson, and he was known for these kind of smaller, sort of clever movies or whatever. He did this time travel movie called Looper. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. And then for some reason, this really came out of left field because he's just such an indie darling or whatever, he made a Star Wars movie. And everyone hated it because it was this weird take on Star Wars. So the Star Wars fans thought it was a piece of crap. And I didn't like it because it seemed like a waste of this guy's talents because I don't like Star Wars. I'm like, why is he doing this? So it was weird. Like he loved Star Wars since he was a kid. He's like, I can't believe I get to make a Star Wars movie. But then everyone just shit on it. And it was the worst thing he ever did. So this was the movie after that where he's like, okay, whoa. Sorry, everybody. Sorry I tried to breathe some life into Star Wars and it just made everybody upset. So this was his movie back to like, okay, let's make a real movie again. And it's real good. So I was thinking we could watch that.
Sure. Let's check out something modern.
Yeah, and it's one of those things because, it's one of those genres that it'll never go away, but it obviously is not prominent like it used to be. I mean, the idea that, like Angela Lansbury and, even Matlock and, like there used to be, it was just a thing on TV all the time. Let's just have mysteries. And I just feel like nowadays it's a lot less common. It's probably most common in England still. So this movie, it's not like he was jumping on a trend. It's not like everybody was desperate for a new take on the whodunit. This is what makes this guy such a good director when he's not doing Star Wars. Is like he just does or even in Star Wars, he does what he likes. He doesn't do what you want necessarily. He's one of these guys like, you don't know you want it till he gives it to you. And then you're like, oh, I guess I did want to see a mystery again. That movie was cool. And this movie did so well, we're working on sequels and shit. So maybe this will become one of those, one of those series of maybe except like I said, I don't remember the character's name, but by the time they do 2 or 3 more of these, maybe I will. Maybe he'll become one of these.
Maybe he'll be a Hercule Poirot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice too, this in particular, because I remember specifically when I was watching, whatever the big new films were of 2019, this really especially stood out in contrast to here's a new series with a less common premise compared to the Terminator thing. That was I'm going to say the 6th Terminator movie, and it was so shit. Just so shit. Terminator 1 and 2 were great, and then 3 sucked, and 4 was pretty rough, and 5 was terrible, 6 was terrible.
To do those sequels, you've got to be really on top of your game. And most of them, the early ones are good because they're trying to sell it.
Yeah.
So they put in a lot of time and effort and make them really good. But as time goes on, you can't keep up that. You just can't keep it up.
Yeah, but it's a brand name, right? And they just can't resist trying one more time. Terminator is such an easy example, too, because it's all right, in the first one, Arnold Schwarzenegger is an evil robot. Oh, in the second one, though, he's a good robot now. He's trying to help save the kid. And then, that's it. You've already done the 2 things. So in the third one, they're I don't know, a lady robot. It just starts immediately. And in that one in 2019, Dark Fate, they brought back Linda Hamilton from the original movies. And that's kind of cool to see Linda Hamilton in a tank top, shooting a grenade launcher, but she's fucking 60 years old. It's just, and Arnold's not getting any younger either. They were all in it, but it's what are we doing? Especially with Arnold, it's they had to explain why the robot looks old now, and he's it is just the skin on my exoskeleton is old. I am the robot. So yeah, it's just nice in general, because I really do think too, in particular, just this era we're in now. I don't know what happened to my generation, but we are the least creative people in the world. All we want is everything from the 80s. They just made a new He-Man cartoon. They just made it. It just came out this year. Let's make a new Ghostbusters. Let's make a new Terminator. Let's make more Aliens movies. Let's make fucking Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, so you're the demographic now that has money.
Yeah.
And that's why it's zeroing in on that group.
Yeah, it's a combination of, we got money, we want our little childhoods back, and it's just easier if you're a Hollywood person to just make another Transformers movie instead of to make something new. So that's all just to say, extra thumbs up to Knives Out and Looper and all of his movies besides Star Wars. That's why it was just so weird to me that this guy, of all people, made a Star Wars movie. But again, it's even this guy that always does his own stuff and always does these unique movies. But when they offered him Star Wars, his little childhood ding-a-ling went off in his brain.
I'd love to see Star Wars again in a new remake. And he bought into it. Yeah.
And then, it was so...
The marketplace is dictating all that stuff.
It was so interesting, too, because just, again, real briefly, just to get into this side stuff, but Star Wars, so it got bought by Disney, and George Lucas doesn't own it anymore. He sold it for billions of dollars, so now they're making new movies. So they made Star Wars Part 7 that was just a retread, exactly a retread of the old Star Wars, and everybody loved it. Then this guy, Rian Johnson, made Part 8, and he just did weird stuff, Luke Skywalker threw away his lightsaber, just, weird stuff you don't expect. He's kind of a jerk, and everyone is, angry because that was different. And it just sucks both ways. If he had done another retread, it would have sucked, but he tried to do something different, and it sucked. You can't win with these nostalgia plays. It's just artistically not a good choice. So, anyway. So all that said, the Knives Out. So that's not quite halfway, but I feel like that's a good place to stop for a break, because that's when I was watching this movie and I was all right, that's pretty cool. I'm into this and talking to the different people, and it's pretty interesting. But they establish right away that this movie doesn't withhold the truth. When they show you cutaways, that is really what happened. Here's all the situations with all the different kids and all the reasons they might be mad at their dad. And then when they show that the housekeeper is why he died, I'm well, what the hell is going on here? We're not even halfway through the movie, and we know for sure that this is what happened. They're not lying to us. That is what happened. so now what? What the fuck? And then it keeps going from here. There's different weird twists and turns, but I was like, all right, you got me. Like, it's the opposite of a whodunit where you don't know who did it. Now it's like, yeah, we do know who did it. There's no question. That's what happened. She's the one who killed him, essentially. And now the movie is going to keep happening? What the fuck?
Well, yeah, because somebody fooled around with those drugs. And somebody took that naloxone out of her bag.
Right.
Because she was honestly trying to locate that to save his life. So although she is the one who administered the shot, she didn't do it willingly. We know that. So now we've got to find out who, so it still is a whodunit.
Right.
Who mucked around with those drugs that they knew she was going to give him.
Yeah, and I just think from like a writing perspective, it's like a bold thing to do of like, let's kind of unravel everything within these first 45 minutes and show you kind of what's going on. And even to the point, I actually forgot about that the main character, it's like truth serum or whatever. The fact that she can't lie or she throws up. Like, wait, what was the other example? It's like that show Better Call Saul. There's a character in that who he can't be around electricity. So like they have to keep him in a house with no power. And otherwise he goes all crazy. And it's like, I'm quite sure that's not real. I'm quite sure that no one has that, but it's a storytelling thing. Similar thing here. It's like, I don't know that there's anyone who will throw up.
Well, you know what? We're going to have to check that out. We'll go
maybe
online after and check that out.
But it's like, yeah, like whether it's real or not, it's such a neat device for a movie where the whole thing is predicated on secrets and lies. Let's just have the main character not be able to lie.
Well, sure, because if you didn't have that premise in here, she would lie because everybody lies.
Yeah.
In the whole show, everybody lies, and she would lie too, if she could.
And I do really like, too, Daniel Craig as, like, it's a bit of a cartoony accent, his foghorn, leghorn, whatever. But there's a lot of times where British actors, generally they're pretty good at American accents, but sometimes they think they're better than they are. But he's really pulling it off. It's good.
And he makes you forget who he is as Daniel Craig.
Yeah, because you think of James Bond in his little Speedos and fighting people with knives and shit. Yeah, so it's this nice mix of, it's got all of the tropes of a movie like this, even his character. Well, let me just ask you one more, blah, 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 and is smoking a cigar. Well, that's what confounds me about this. Like, he is a stereotypical character, but at the same time, this feels like a really fresh take on this type of story.
So let's take a break while Jamie Curtis is dabbing her eyes as she's getting ready for the memorial service.
Yeah, we're about 45 minutes in.
I should help them, right? I have my opinion. But I have a feeling you're for your horn.
So yeah, definitely it's weird, right, how it's such a weird setup, such an unusual start, but then at the end it is the classic aha, where he just
and he has it all in place, and he outlines it all.
Because it's weird that is one of the things that's the most satisfying about a murder mystery is that last 10 minutes where they just
But
explain
it had
everything.
lots of twists and turns in it.
Yeah.
All the way through. It was.
I think my favorite part about all those twists, because there are so many weird coincidental things, and maybe the fake knife is a little much, but it's a little much that he would just stab somebody. Like, I feel like they just set that up for the fake knife thing.
Well, because they made reference to the fake knife somewhere really early on, that you couldn't tell the difference between the fake knives and the.
Well, I never saw this in the credits before, just the the portraits. Like, it really does feel like an old-timey movie. But my favorite part about the coincidences is the thing with the morphine and the medicine, how the labels were switched by Chris Evans, by Ransom, but she accidentally switched them back. It would have been too coincidental if she just accidentally mixed them up. I like that they threw in that she just used her instinct as a nurse. She didn't actually look at the labels. She knew which one was which, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, so that makes sense that despite the labels being changed, she still gave him the proper thing. Because if it was just an accident that he changed the labels, but they happened to...
Yeah, and it was believable that the viscosity of the two items were slightly off. So as a nurse, using that every day, yes, she would realize that. So,
Yeah.
so that.
Yeah, that one particular detail I just felt like was important because otherwise it all just feels like too much luck, too much just random luck. Where this, like, I kind of like that they kind of ham-fisted a little at the end. But just the fact that, you're saying like, oh, what if now that we know she did it, but what if now that when she's talking to Ransom and stuff, your conjecture was like, well, maybe she is doing
Faking
something or
all that.
whatever. But it's kind of neat that in the end, it is just that she's just the only person in this movie who's not an asshole.
Yeah.
And she navigates
And she
through
really
it.
is a sweet, genuine,
Yeah.
honest girl.
Which is also very unusual for a murder mystery. It's nice to
Yeah,
just...
usually everybody's got an ulterior motive, and everybody did, except her.
Yeah. Because, man, that family, they're the worst. Like, they all suck. And I was thinking, too, how it's funny how you go down the generations. The grandma seems pretty cool. The main guy himself was a little bit... he's obviously jerking people around a little with his love of murder mysteries, but obviously a self-made writer, he's not bad. Then you get the generation under him, they all suck in their different ways where they've been kind of coddled. And then you get the generation under that with the grandkids, and they're the fucking worst. All three of them just suck shit. The girl wasn't as bad, but the two dudes were horrible. And it's like you just see...
But you can believe that because they're a third generation that would have been very spoiled.
Yeah, and you got to
Never
assume...
had to work. Money was easy for them because their grandfather covered everything.
Yeah, so it makes it too more believable that Harlan, the main guy, would... Like, he sees this happening too. That's why he decides, like, I've got to cut off my family because not only have I kind of spoiled my kids, it's only getting worse. The next generation is even worse than them, and it's never going to stop. I have $60 million. If this family keeps just... They could go for generations of being terrible people.
Now, I'm kind of thinking, though, my God, anybody cut out poor old mom.
Oh, I guess. Yeah.
But then I suppose he figured, I mean, if he was 85, she's got to be over 100 or 100 at the very least. And
guess
maybe he
so.
figured, oh, well, her days are done.
Well, I figure, too, I mean, it's obviously also just for the clarity of storytelling that he gave it all to Marta, the nurse. But also, like, Marta's like the fountainhead of it, of like through her, the money will go to logical places. Like, obviously, Marta will look after the grandmother. And since the grandkid Meg wasn't so bad, Marta will pay for her school. Like, Marta will let money go to a place that's useful where no one else would. So, yeah, presumably Marta will at least look after the old lady.
And they have to tie in all those little things. Like when they make little references, like the spot of blood on her shoe, the knife at the end. I mean, everybody would have been wondering, why is there that big sun made out of knives? And then Harlan makes reference to you can't tell the difference between real knives and fake knives. And all the way through, they keep showing that big sun of knives. Well, somehow you got to pull that in there. Come on. So, of course, they do at the very end. He grabs the knife because he's going to
I even kind of like how
kill her.
they really, it's so neat the way this movie's balanced, where even Ransom, who is obviously the actual one who gets arrested at the end and is the cause of all this and is like the worst one, but they do paint a nice picture that in his own way, he was the closest to the grandfather. He did get along the best, besides Marta, like spent a summer helping him with his books, and like they played Go together, and they both, they're the clever ones. Like the grandfather writes the murder mystery, Ransom, the grandkid, arranged one, he did it in real life. But yeah, like they were connected in that way, that they're into this shit. It's just that Ransom's the evil version.
But at one point, he says he should have let him write the books.
Right.
As opposed to just producing them.
Yeah.
Giving him that opportunity. And that's an opportunity missed. And that's where he probably at that point realizes he's really blown it. And now he's going to cut Ransom off. So Ransom now has to do his own thing. Either make his own way.
It's funny too, like everybody, even Jamie Lee Curtis, at the start of the movie, she seems like the one who, so she did make her own business and everything's going okay, but they even reveal after that, yeah, she did her own thing with $1 million loan. Like, she's like, that's
From
saying...
Dad, and we never get, and we don't hear, and she paid that loan back.
Right, yeah.
We never hear about the loan again, other than that she made her start with $1 million loan.
It reminds me of that saying of, someone who's born on third base, but they think they hit a triple, like I'm so close to home, I did it, but you didn't do it, you're just born there. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting too, now that I know they're making more of these movies, because it's going to be a lot harder, I think. Because this one was neat because it's been a while since a movie like this, and it's like partially a new take on this type of movie, but partially it's just one of these movies. It's just nice to see one of these again, and all of the tropes and all of the stuff that everyone likes about these types of movies. So yeah, like the second time through, what are you going to do? Because you can't just do the same gimmick of the truth, that this movie just tells you the truth.
You could do the same formula, because as I said earlier, look at all these ones that are Sherlock Holmes, same formula, Angela Lansbury, and
I think, though, I guess this guy in particular, I guess
Columbo, same formula.
If you've seen also this guy in particular, his other movies, like I just don't think he will, because he's the guy who every movie he does is so different that he even made a Star Wars movie that wasn't right and that everyone got mad about. Like I don't think he will. He's going to make it hard on himself that way. And it's going to be weird too, because the main guy, Benoit Blanc, like even in the course of this movie, he starts becoming almost like a parody of one of those types of characters where the real world is happening around him, and like medical examiners are showing up and fires are happening, and he's still, oh, it's a donut hole within a donut hole or whatever. Like, he's still a little silly, and I just think it's going to be tougher the second time to pull this off. I'm curious, though. I mean, we'll see. I'll let you know when it comes out. I don't think there's a date or anything. But yeah, that really holds up, too. It's nice to watch a movie again. And yeah, beyond the movie itself, we kept noticing just the sets.
The set was incredible.
Yeah, you could look at that stuff all day. Like, you could watch that movie with the sound off and just be like, what is that thing in the background?
Now, the set was fabulous. And the things that they put into that set, and you said at one point you wondered if it was just somebody's house and they filmed and all that stuff was already there. That would be interesting to find out if that was true, because the thing was loaded with all these weird and wonderful objets d'art, paintings, sculptures, and the knife, the sun. The sun with the knives was probably something they created for this movie.
Right.
But some of those other things, they weren't really relevant to the show. They didn't add anything to the murder mystery, but they were fabulous for background shots.
Yeah, it would almost be disappointing if it is just a movie set and they just took all that stuff out, because it's so cool.
And of course, the little coup de grace there is when that Ransom is going on about this is their historical home, this is their heritage, etc., etc., etc. And
so he bought that in the 80s.
Blanc says he bought it from a Pakistani family in the 1980s.
Yeah. That just makes me think, I don't know if I'm going to look on YouTube and see if it's here, but yeah, that house with all the stuff in it makes me think of, there's this other director, Guillermo del Toro. He, just has more money than he knows what to do with, and he's into just weird stuff, kind of like that house, except more horror-based with him. But apparently he was buying so much weird stuff and weird statues and crazy paintings and stuff that his wife was like, get this shit out of my house. Like, I don't want to live in this crazy house. So he bought the house next door and filled the whole house next door with crazy shit. And apparently he made a little documentary about that house. Oh, here we go. Guillermo del Toro's Bleak House. So maybe we'll just wrap up the podcast here, but this is 10 minutes. Let's watch this, because yeah, you can even just tell from the one screenshot. It's sort of like that, but he just bought a house to fill with crazy stuff. And the story I always heard with him, because he does these really great horror movies and stuff. His really famous one was Pan's Labyrinth. But he grew up in Mexico. His grandmother raised him, and his grandmother was super Catholic. But she would buy him, like, monster magazines and stuff, and like weird comic books about demons and things. So she would buy him this stuff because that's what he liked, but then she would cry about it and pray for him and be like, I don't understand, why do you like such things? So yeah, he said it was just a weird upbringing that she really made him feel guilty about it, but she did buy him the stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice. So yeah, any final thoughts on Knives Out, or should we...
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty decent, right? Yeah.